Hello and welcome to Tech Deals. PUBG, will it play on the $170 Ryzen 5 2400G with integrated Vega 11 graphics, 720p low detail preset? I'm going to show you some live gameplay here and then a benchmark chart at the end of this video. Linked down in the video description below will be a full playlist of Will It Play videos, another Will It Play playlist of just the Ryzen 5 2400G so you can see all the different games that I've tested. Each game gets one video, but this way you can just watch the ones you're interested in rather than watching an hour-long video of about 500 benchmarks. I previously tested PUBG on the Ryzen 3 2200G, the $99 version of this, and I tested that at both 1080p and 720p. The truth is 1080p was really bad and really rough. 720p was okay, if not perfect. I am not doing 1080p here, which might seem counterintuitive. Wait, you did the higher resolution on the lower end chip and you're not doing it on the higher end chip. Well, the reality is, if you play PUBG, you need good performance and you need good frame rates and good responsiveness. And even though the Ryzen 5 2400G is faster, it isn't that much faster. So basically the graphics are the limitation here. If you look at the real-time performance in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that we're currently at 56, 57 frames per second. But I'm alone. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. Okay, there's a building in front of me, but I'm not shooting, I'm not in a team, I'm not in a squad, and all those things will drag the performance down a little bit. If you want to play this game, yes, you can do it on this APU, but 720p low is actually probably where you need to be. The interesting aspect is, at least for a lot of this game, the 4 cores, 4 threads of the 2200G would be enough. And if you were going to buy something like a GTX 1050 or RX 560 graphics card, then that would be enough. You could absolutely get away with that in most situations. Although that being said, if you're going to buy a dedicated graphics card, especially with what they cost these days, $150 to $200 for one of those, I would certainly still get the Ryzen 5 2400G just because it's got 4 cores, 8 threads, and a higher clock speed out of the box. If you look at the VRAM usage, you'll notice that we're using all 2 gigabytes of the VRAM that I've set aside for the game. We're probably using a bit more because once it hits that 2 gigabyte limit, there's nothing more it can take, and so instead it falls over into main system RAM. Now this is an APU. If you only had 512 megabytes allocated, it would still work. It would just increase the main system RAM usage and of course decrease the VRAM usage. The reason for setting 2 gigabytes in the BIOS is not because it dramatically improves performance. It doesn't. Some games won't launch if it doesn't see it there. They'll actually come up with an error message saying you must have a video card with at least 1 gigs or at least 2 gigs of VRAM in order to play this game. And so by setting it in the BIOS, that way you can play the game. Could you play this game on a system with 8 gigabytes of RAM? Yeah, you could. It would be really, really tight. This is a clean test system with an absolutely fresh install of Windows 10. It was installed within a week of this actually being recorded. So there's nothing on this machine. It isn't months old with multiple different cards and CPUs installed. This was as fresh gets. Your system with actual programs installed and things running in the background and stuff going on is probably going to have a higher RAM usage. So while 8 gigs almost kind of sort of works, there is nothing left for Windows to swap, to store temporary files in, to do any of its stuff. So you're really absolutely at the limit. You can try it, but you'll likely get some more micro stutters and some other issues just from the fact that there is absolutely zero free RAM usage. 16 gigs is a much better choice, but I also recognize that's expensive. In March of 2018, when I'm recording this, it's about $180 for 16 gigs of DDR4 3200, which is what I recommend. You only save $20 by going to 2400. It's not worth the $20 saved. Get the 3200. You can use Ripjaws 5, Trident Z, Corsair Vengeance LPX, and in most motherboards these days, those will work at either 3200 or 2933 without a problem. Up until now, we've been inside. Let's get outside, steal a truck, borrow a truck, and do some driving. This is actually kind of fun. Somebody shot at me for a change. Way too many times I get in a vehicle and I go drive around this map, and I can drive around for 5 solid minutes and nothing happens. This time, hang on, wait for it. I don't think it'll be too long. Well, I didn't think it'd be I thought it was actually this building up here on the right, but clearly I don't remember because it's been 2 or 3 or 5 days since I actually played this before I did the voiceover. Sometimes I do a recording like this and voice it over right away, and then other times there's a delay. There's a couple of days or even a week before I actually sit down and do the voiceover, make the video and upload it. And then actually, to be completely honest, some of these videos sit on the channel marked as private for a week before they actually get published. And so now we're going to spend the next several minutes driving around the map, basically finding as many enemies as we can and seeing what happens. I actually do run into, if my memory is not mistaken, another vehicle, although that might have been a different replay. I actually just recorded last night, which isn't last night to you, but last night relative to when I'm voicing this over, Ryzen 5 1600 with a GTX 1050 Ti. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, that's the one I'm thinking of that had the shooting. So it's not this one, never mind, scratch that. They all blend together after a while. For those of you curious, while the APUs are amazing, the reality is a $200 GTX 1050 Ti, yeah, that's what they cost these days, and that's probably not going to change for a while, is dramatically faster. You want to play 1080p, you want to play over 60 frames per second, do you want to up the detail levels? Yeah, you need a dedicated graphics card, but hey, this thing costs less than that graphics card does and includes a free CPU along with it. What a deal. So scratch what I said earlier before about being shot at. Now that I think of it, that was that playthrough. Most of my battles in PUBG basically end up involved landing somewhere, picking up a bunch of weapons, running around, trying to find a vehicle, driving around, and then eventually you die. I know that's probably not how you're supposed to play the game, but first of all, I am benchmarking it, so I want a long enough run. I've got about, 11 minutes total recorded. Oh, that's right, I went to the drop on this one. Boy, when did I record this? I recorded this February 24th. I just looked over at the recording, and I'm voicing it over March 5th, for whatever that's worth. I figured I would find some enemies if I drove towards... I don't think a truck would survive. That's some airtime. Hey, don't worry, the truck is just fine. Maybe an old 70s Bronco could do it, but the modern SUVs they sell today would just break an axle. So I drove over to where this thing was landing, the loot crate thing that's supposed to attract enemies and get people to come together, even though I don't think it works. I figured, well, I'll drive around there and... ooh, that's gonna hurt. Don't worry, no airbags deployed in the complete run of this mission. So... okay, I'm not going to show you anymore because we're basically just driving around being silly at this point. I don't even remember how I died, and frankly, does it matter? That leads us to our benchmark chart. 52 frames per second average over more than 10 minutes of playing, 36 frames per second 1% low, and 22 frames per second 0.1% low. This is at 720p low detail, and this is why I didn't bother doing 1080p this time, because after reading all the comments beneath the previous one on the Ryzen 3 2200G and thinking about it for a bit, would you really want to play with lower performance than this if you're a serious PUBG player? Probably not. Want better than this? Buy a dedicated graphics card. A $200 1050 Ti will provide far superior performance to this at either 720p or 1080p. Like this video if you like it, share it with your friends if you loved it. Remember to subscribe to my channel with that big huge red button directly below. Post your comments below the video and check the video description for links and details. Links to Amazon and Newegg for both of these APUs, the Ryzen 3 and the Ryzen 5. Links to my full playlist of Will It Play. Links to all of the Will It Plays for this particular APU and a bunch of other stuff down there. Please check them out. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video.